A very good morning to all. In today's session, we are all going to learn what is all about the selling cost, excess capacity framework, price discrimination and its types, and it involves the pricing strategies under monopoly. So let's begin with the selling cost. So the equilibrium with selling cost. So what is all about the selling cost is selling costs are those costs which are actually helps to shape up, or you can say to give up a certain position towards a demand curve for a particular product. So automatically selling cost is mainly involved to change the shape of the demand curve of a particular product which has been you can say done by the various organizations and or firms. According to the Chamberlain, who is one of the famous economists, he has also defined that selling cost plays a very significant role in monopolistic and oligopoly. So in these particular market forms, or you can say a market structure, the various firms have to compete their promotion towards the product by spending a plenty of investments on a particular advertisements and publicity. And these promotional tools or the firms investing on advertisements and publicity which are being used to increase or generate the sales among the customers base. And most of all the types of producers who are engaged into these market form has to decide about the price and output only. So when it comes to the any deciding a selling cost, the producer is not only decide the price and output only, it also decide the selling cost. Along with that, it automatically the profits could be maximized in that particular market situations. So when we talk about any cost on advertisement or any cost involved on advertisement, publicity, or any sales promotion methods, it's always involved to shape up the supply curve of the particular product when which ultimately you can say leads to a increase in its demand of a particular product. So ultimately the selling cost is a very broader concept when it comes to investments in the various advertisements and the publicity. And advertisement expenditure is always be a part. So any expenditure related to any sales promotion or the promotional tools involved are always the part of the selling cost. So this is a particular conceptual framework of selling cost which has been explained by the E.A. Chamberlain, who is a famous economist in manageable economics. So let's begin with the assumption of this particular concept. So there are two main assumptions where the buyers do not have any perfect knowledge about the different types of the product. So it means it is always being assumed under this selling cost conceptual framework that the buyers do not have any perfect knowledge about any of the products or different types of the products. And second main assumption of this selling cost equilibrium, that is the buyer's demand and taste can be changed, because automatically when it comes to the demand, these factors, the taste and preferences of the buyer will always be considered, because accordingly the firms you can say made up or build up the products according to their needs and preferences, so that so that the customers needs and expectations could be fulfilled. And that is the main reason, it is one of the main assumptions that buyers demand and taste cannot can be changed. So let's begin with the graphical representation of the selling cost. In this particular figure, we can look up that there are average revenue. The main average revenue curve is a AR1. When there is an increase in the selling cost, automatically the average revenue curve will shift a parallel will shift up parallelly towards a right side just due to the increase in the investments in advertisements and the, you can say, publicity, and ultimately it increase the, you can say, average revenue, and automatically the firms will earn the more profit than the original average revenue curve. So automatically in this particular diagram, it always portray then when there is an increase in the investment on expend advertising or publicity, automatically the average revenue curve shifts parallelly to the right side, and as a result the firms earns more and more profit as there is a particular increase in the investment, and the selling cost will always be increased. If there is an increase in the selling cost, or you can say that ultimately it generates the revenues to the firms, and that the diagram is always portrayed in it. So let's begin with the explanation of this main diagram. That ABC is an initial ABC curve, which always shown, always has been shown in the figure, that ABC is an average production cost, and AR1 is an initial average revenue curve, or we can say the initial demand curve. The initial price is OP, and the firms which who are mainly involved in it are earning profits by, you can, by a rectangular area, you can look at a red mark, that is PQRS. So this particular area shows that the firms are earning profits. When there is a situation arrives when the firms increases the selling cost or make an investment on advertisements, that means a new curve will drive, that is ACC1, that is called the average composite cost curve, or you can see the average cost curves 1, which always includes the average selling cost as well. So when the selling cost is equal to whatever the difference between the APC and ACC1, that difference is always used to drive a new curve, that is called the average revenue 2. That means the second curve, which is more than the initial average revenue curve, that is AR1. So when there is an increase in the investment, when their selling cost would get increased, then ultimately the a new curve will drive, that is average revenue to that means it was being, that means that the firms are actually earning more than the initially, which has been PQRS. Initially the firms have earned the profit, that is PQRS. Now when the firms has increased the selling cost, when the firms has increased their advertisement expenditure, then automatically the firms will generate more and more profits than the initial profits, that is PQRS. So automatically when everything has been increased, is generate a new demand curve, that is called D2, which is equal to AR2, and the firms are earning profits more than the PQRS, and the new profits whom the firm is earning, that is P1, Q1, R1 and S1. So this is a new for profits which are more than the initial profits in case of when the advertisement expenditure has been, where the firm has increased their advertising expenditure on the promotion of a particular product, and automatically it generates the sales, and when the sales has been generated, the profits will equally earned by the all the firms. When we talk about that how the firm has reached to the average revenue 3 and D3, so you can see that when the firm will increase more and more you can say investments on advertising and publicities, then automatically the firm will find a better return on their investments in case of generating the sales, in case of generating the revenues or profits. So when the firms are investing more and more investments on expenditure, and when there is any more additional selling cost is involved, then automatically the demand curve, that is D3 or A3, that means the demand curve will automatically shifts to rightward, which should be parallel shift from D2 to D3 or AR2 to AR3. So automatically when there is an additional selling cost involved, when there is additional investment on advertisement is involved, then automatically the curves will shift to D3 and AR3. So this is how the firm will generate the revenue by using up the concept of the selling cost. So when you look up the initial profit the firm is earning, that is PQRS, when there is an investment in the selling cost or the advertisement expenditure, the firm will start earning more than the initial profits, that is P1, Q1, R1 and S1. So when there is an additional investment in the selling cost or in the investments in an advertisement, the firm start more earning, which is equal to P2, Q2, R2, S2, which is more than the that is P1, Q1, R1 and S2. So automatically when there is an additional units keep on increasing and the firm will increase their selling cost or having an additional selling cost involved in promotion of the products, then ultimately their demand curves will also shift to the rightward as parallel based, and accordingly, the firms will start more and more earnings than before what they have earned. So this is actually a diagram, a graphical representation of the equilibrium point with the help of selling cost. So if you look up the equilibrium point, that is Q1, Q3, Q1, Q1, Q2, and ultimately but the output they have achieved, that is OM, initially OM1 with the investment in the selling cost or where the increase in the selling cost, when there is more increase on the selling cost, the output would be OM2. So this is how this concept works when there is a selling cost involved. Accordingly, the curves, demand curves or average revenue curves will shift to the rightwards. Now we talk about the next important concept, that is theory of excess capacity under monopolistic competition. So when this comes, what is the excess capacity under monopolistic competition in a long run period? It means unutilized capacity or excess capacity is actual a difference between the optimum output and the output which are actually achieved in the long run period, that is called the excess capacity or the unutilized capacity, which ultimately refers that what would be the differences between the idle output, or in other words we can talk about the optimum output and the output that is actually attained or achieved in the long run, that is called the excess capacity or the concept of excess capacity. As we are well aware, under the perfect competition, the demand curve is tangent to the long run average cost curve, which is in equilibrium conditions of the full equilibrium under the long run period. So automatically, under the monopolistic competition, in the long run, the same equilibrium condition has to be fulfilled. That is, the long run marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue, and average revenue, which is equal to price, and demand is equal to the minimum LAC. It automatically, when there is a concept of excess capacity, there is a conditions under monopolistic competition in the long run period, and the two conditions are there where the long run marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue and average revenue is equal to price is equal to minimum long run average cost curve. So automatically, when these two conditions of the monopolistic competition where the full equilibrium could be achieved has to be fulfilled. So in this particular scenario in the long run, so the entries or whatever the entries of the new firms will always insist, we always force to all those existing firms who are already involved in that particular monopolistic market to make them the best use of their resources so that they can produce the whatever the products involved at a lowest point of the average total cost. So whatever they sell, the products, it should be at a minimum cost. It should be at a minimum point of whatever the cost involved. That is the average total cost. So in the long run, it always insists to the existing firm to use their best resources so that the products can be produced at the least cost which is equal to the minimum average total cost or average cost. So this is how the excess capacity concept is work. So this is a graphical representation when it comes to the you can say excess capacity. So when we talk about the where this is a diagram where the two condition has to be fulfilled, where the MR is equal to the MC and the you can see the AR is equal to the minimum long run average cost curve. And these two condition is fulfilled in this diagram. That means a particular firm is in full equilibrium where these two conditions is automatically fulfilled. So when these two conditions are fulfilled, that means in a particular market structure, we can see a monopolistic, the firms will earn the abnormal profits in that particular market scenario where these two particular conditions has been fulfilled. That means the firm is in full equilibrium, and that also means that the firms will use the most efficient output so that the society will enjoy that idle output so that their expectations could be fulfilled in a long run period. So this is the diagram which has been shown where the output has been measured on the x-axis and the cost and revenue is measured on the y-axis. As you can see, when these two conditions have been fulfilled, where the AR is equal to MR, or where we can talk about MR is equal to the marginal cost and AR is equal to the minimum point which has been reached and intersect these points to the long run average cost curve at a minimum point E or S. So automatically the ON would be the optimum output and OP is the cost and revenue for that particular firm. That means this is an idle. ON is the idle output where the firm can produce in the long run. So in this particular structure, the demand curve is facing the individual firm, which is not exactly, it's not horizontal under perfect competition, but it will become horizontal in the monopolistic competition where the average revenue or the marginal revenue is actually tangent to the long run marginal cost curve, which is equal to the price and which is equal to the long run average cost curve at its minimum point. So the minimum point which has been intersect and tangent to the average revenue and marginal revenue, it means the firms is producing the less than the optimum level when they are earning normal profits. So when the firms are earning normal profits, that means the firms are actually producing the less than the optimum unit where they are earning normal profits. which is or you can see where the firms are earning normal profits, the firms will not see any more incentives to produce the idle output, because as both the conditions has been fulfilled, the ON or OQ is an idle output. So automatically the firms either could produce the less than the idle output, and which cannot, then the firms cannot see any incentives that they could produce the output more than the idle output, which is OQ or ON. So the point where the firm can achieve an equilibrium point, that is the point we can see a normal language E, but in this diagram it's shown S, where the LMC and LAC automatically cuts each other and tangent to all the with these both curves to average revenue and marginal revenue, which automatically satisfy the two mean equilibriums under you can say monopolistic competition. So if the firm is produce the output more than the idle output, that is ON, then ultimately the firm will achieve the higher return in the long run, which equals to means that the higher marginal cost than the marginal revenue, because the marginal revenue cannot be changed in this particular scenario. The average cost will be the higher than the marginal revenue. If the firm will go beyond the idle output, that is ON. So this is an explanation at how the excess capacity would work if there is a certain changes in the marginal cost in the long period, because marginal cost plays a very important role when the firms would produce the maximum you can say output when there is a case of excess capacity. Now, this is also the one of the case where the demand curve and the marginal revenue curves and the average revenue, which is equal to price in MR, and how there is a shifts in that particular aspect. So that to be explained using the concept of excess capacity under the monopolistic competition. So when we talk about under the monopolistic competition, any firm who is actually producing the less than the idle output. So the idle output is OQ. The equilibrium point is E, where the demand curve, or you can say the marginal cost curve, intersect to each other. So automatically idle output is that output where the long run marginal cost curve intersect the average revenue curve and the demand curve, and that particular point where all curves are intersect, that is demand, average revenue and long run marginal cost curve, that point is actually called the equilibrium point. So as a result, when the firm is producing the less than the optimum level of output, so the ideal and optimum level of output is OQ. So when the firm is producing less than the idle output, then ultimately there is a chances that the unutilized capacity, that means unutilized units which has not been produced yet, so that could be produced at the time where the idle output which reached at that particular point, where the average cost in the long run will automatically shape in the hyperbola position, or you can see the U-shaped shapes in a very flatter way. So in a flatter shape, and this is a way that how the firms will reach out to the, you can see the actual output that the firm will achieve in this particular situation. So whatever the differences between the OQ and OQ1 is actually refers to a unutilized capacity where a new equilibrium will you can say achieve, that is E1, where when there is a long run average cost curve intersects the you can say the long run marginal cost curve at the original equilibrium point, and automatically a new equilibrium point will achieved when it cuts the marginal revenue curve where the A1 and E1 is actually you can say the actual output which could be achieved in this particular situation. So the firm is in equilibrium, that is E1, where the long run marginal cost curve cuts the marginal revenue, that is MR1, that is a below an idle output, and whatever the price has been set, that is the Q1 and the E1. So this is a price which has been set and due to which the new equilibrium has been achieved because it cuts the marginal cost and the marginal revenue as well. So when we talk about in this new equilibrium, the output level is or the equilibrium output is called the OQ1, but this is not an idle output because automatically D is already changing to the average to the long run marginal cost and average revenue. So automatically that is the idle output, that is OQ, but OQ1 is not idle because the long run marginal cost curve and the demand curve will not intersect at the new equilibrium point, that is E1, and automatically in this particular scenario at the point E1 the long run marginal cost curve is actually more than the marginal revenue 1. So it is beyond the equilibrium level, that is E, and automatically the firm will not achieve the idle output at this point under the monopolistic competition. So whenever there is a comparison between the perfect competition and the monopolistic competition, then automatically what the output the firm could achieve under the monopolistic competition is actually an idle output, but the price of its product is actually higher than the perfect competition. When we talk about the price is lower than to reach the idle output under the perfect competition. But in case of under the monopolistic competition, but when in the case of perfect competition, the firm is actually produces the output which is the higher than the competitive price which has been desired under the under the perfect competition. So when in case of the perfect competition, the firms will produce the output which is the you can say lower the price than the idle output, but in case of perfect competition the higher prices will be charged to produce an output in the perfect competition market. So in the monopolistic competition the output is automatically less than the idle output, that is OQ, and the monopolistic competitive price would be its Q1 and E1, which is the higher than the competitive you can say equilibrium price, that is EQ or QE. So automatically the you can say uh, this the change in the quantity demand or output and its price is more than the idle price or idle equilibrium price, that is QE. And why there is a change of the lower to high prices is just because of the excess capacity conceptual framework is exist in this particular diagram due under the monopolistic competition. So when there is a higher prices than the idle equilibrium price, so it means there is an excess capacity. where the firm is actually producing lower than the ideal price. So automatically, what how the excess capacity would be estimated? The difference between the idle output and the output which will be achieved under the monopolistic competition, that difference, the difference between Q to Q1 and with the equilibrium prices QE to Q1 and A1, that difference is actually called an excess capacity, the unutilized capacity, due to which the quantity has been reduced but at a higher prices due to the differences of the excess capacity. So this is how the framework of the excess capacity and how you show up the differences of the excess capacity in this particular diagram. Now we talk about the next concept, that is price discrimination. So when we talk about the price discrimination is that pricing strategy, or is that strategy where the particular businesses, or you can see the firms or companies, charges a different prices to a different group of customer for the same or for an identical product. That strategy is called price discrimination. And this strategy will always allow all the firms and businesses to just build up or to generate the maximum to maximum revenue or profits by charging the different prices to a different customer base. So automatically those clients who are willing to pay up the higher price at the for that identical product, then automatically they will charge accordingly the prices if the consumer are actually willing to pay for that particular price for the same product. And this is how this strategy works. So if the consumers are actually paying, they know, and the even the organizations and the businesses firms will know that they are charging the higher prices, and the consumers and the buyers are actually paying that price. So automatically it's that such strategy is called the price discrimination. So price discrimination is actually based on the various factors such as age, income, location, or exact timing of the purchase and the repurchase process. So this is how the price discrimination has been defined. Now we talk about the types of price discrimination, or we can, in the words, we can call it degrees of price discrimination. So basically, there are three main types. There are three main degrees of the price discrimination. The first degree of price discrimination, second degree of price discrimination, and third degree of price discrimination. So let's go on through one by one about these types or degrees of price discrimination. So let's talk about the first degree price discrimination. So under this type or under this degree of the price discrimination, the business or the businesses or the firms actually charges they decide the charges what the actual buyer is willing to pay. If the buyer is willing to pay 500 rupees for this product, the business charges 500 rupees from that buyer. And such degree of price discrimination called first degree of price discrimination, where the firm charges different prices to different clients or other clients, but this price is charged according to the willingness of the individual. So if my willingness to pay, you can see, to pay a price for a new mobile phone is 10,000, that means the business charged 10,000 from me actually for that particular mobile phone, or to buy a mobile phone. So that is called the first degree price discrimination. And the first degree price discrimination is actually most efficient in case of the seller, because seller is having that strategy to charge the different prices to different clients actually, either in any of the complexes or any of the you can see the retail shops which are available in any area. So sometimes it would such degree of price discrimination would be a difficult to implement, would be a difficult to to sustain for a seller into a particular market. Let's talk about the second degree price discrimination. So when we talk about the second degree price discrimination is actually based on the buyer purchase quantity. So when a consumer is willing to buy any goods or any products but in bulk, and that means that particular you can say business or the firms will apply a heavy discount. That means such type of discrimination is called second degree price discrimination, or in other words we can call the quantity discrimination. So in this particular, you can say strategy, the firms will definitely charge the different prices, but according to the quantities of the goods when it will be purchased in the bulk quantities, and ultimately at in this particular process, the firm will apply a heavy discount in it. If for example, if I want to buy around 500 quantities of rice, then automatically the firm will give a heavy discount for the 500 quantities of rice to me. But if the quantity will become 100 quantities, if the quantity will become and turn into 100 quantities of rice, then ultimately the discount will be applied accordingly. It will be the less discount because that is not in a huge bulk. So that is accordingly and differently the discount rates, and it depends will be charged, and it ultimately depends on the purchase of goods and services when it will be you can say sold in bulk. The next degree is third degree price discrimination. Under this third degree price discrimination, there are different prices which has been charged for the other groups of people, and it depends that what group of peoples the businesses are actually refer. Some businesses are referred you can say to charge different prices for the other groups of people based on their age, their income, their geographical location. If my age is less, then accordingly the business or the firm will charge that particular price according to my age. If my location is far away, then the prices would be high, would be highly charged by the businesses. If the location is near, then accordingly the business or the firm will charge their prices would be a lower when there is a nearer location. So automatically the different prices has been decided based on the buyer age, buyer income, and the buyer geographical location. And accordingly, the businesses will charge their prices to different groups of the people based on their demographic factors like age, income, geographical location. So when any business provides a group of students or a senior members, that means a third degree price discrimination is a very easiest strategy to implement, and this particular strategy is actually basically a more commonly used strategy in all over the world. Now we talk about the objectives of price discrimination. So when we talk about the objectives of price discrimination, the first objective is to earn or to generate the extra revenue using the price discrimination. When the firms or businesses charges different prices for the same product, so there is a more and more chances to earn the extra revenue as the retail prices actually are actually high, and the prices that you charge from different buyers is will be more higher or more lesser. So accordingly there is a more and more chances to earn extra income whenever possible in that particular market. Next one is higher profit earning. So when we talk about the higher profit earning or using a discriminating price strategy, will always help all the firms and businesses to earn more and more profits when there is a chances and when there is various possibilities to charge the higher prices to a selected group of clients. Now we talk of a use of spare capacity. So under this policy, it doesn't mean that there is always a more and more possibilities to charge the higher prices. Sometimes, as I already said, that every time it will not be a possibility for a firms to charge the higher to higher prices for the different clients. But sometimes there is always another possibilities that the firm would charge less price for a certain goods. So why? Because when there is a excess stock available in the market, if you look up the Boxer Day or you can look up a Christmas Day, when there are plenty of excess stock is always available, and the firm will charge the lesser prices for all those excess goods which are available in that particular market. And that is the one of the reason and one of the objective to apply this discriminating policy, so that to just finish up all the excess stock by charging them the lower prices to different clients. The next one is improved cash flow. So using this policy, it always helps to all the businesses and firms to earn up the more and more extra cash by charging more inflated price. That means more, if the firm will charge more and more prices for the same goods, that means they always earn or extra cash, or they will improve their cash flow position in that particular period. The next one is characteristics of the pricing strategies. So let's begin with that. The first one is a client perception of value. So in this particular strategy or the pricing method, the firm charges according to the whatever the value of the goods and services perceived by the firm, that this value could be achieved in the particular firm. Next one is cost of running your business. So when we talk about the cost of running your business, it would be achieved in a very long way. So that means it always helps the firm according to their cost of running up the business and how they prevent the loss generation or whatever the situation arises in that particular market. The next one is there are plenty of the competitors in the market, and it always the firm can always gain a competitive advantage when they charge any less prices for the same goods and services which are being provided by the different firm or firms. So there are various situations when where the firm is actually being decided why the firms could match up the same price which has been adopted by the competitors, so that they will not use any of the respective clients in the market. The next one is target buyer persona. So this particular concept is always helps in pricing or to decide the price of the good and services by a firm as per the buyer's location. So the prices would be charged on one of the demographic variable, that is the location of the buyer, not based on the what actually the buyer is willing to pay for that particular product. So this is also the one of the characteristic of the price discrimination, that is the target buyer personas. Next one is growth potential. So automatically it's a discriminating policies, is a discriminating strategies are the perfect source for which will be placed to reach out the growth potential or have a possibility to increase the firm growth potential in the market, and through the discriminating policies or strategy is automatically proved that their cash flows, their extra earnings, their extra income would be earned when there is a high firm growth potential is to be seen in the market. Now we talk about the pricing in public monopoly. So when there is a monopoly exists in the public place or there is the one place, what would be the pricing strategies which would be which a single firm could apply in that particular market, that is monopoly market. So basically there are three main pricing. The first one is marginal cost pricing, second one is average cost pricing, and the third one is markup pricing. So when we talk about the marginal cost pricing, the marginal cost pricing is actually one of the practice where the price of a particular product or service will be decided with the marginal changes, which is always higher than the variable cost of that producing the product. That is called the marginal cost pricing. So marginal cost pricing is actually is just a practice that how the firms will set up the price of that particular product and services is actually a marginal slightly higher than the variable cost of that particular producing that particular product, and that is called the marginal cost pricing. So when you talk about the marginal cost pricing, marginal cost plays a very important role which has to be determined when by using up a knowledge of the variable cost of production, and whatever the pricing marginal cost, it should be slight higher than the variable cost. So when there is a marginal cost the company is deciding which is higher than the variable cost of that of producing that the same product is actually called the marginal cost pricing. And the marginal cost pricing is actually presented for a short term price setting method, and it always occurs when a company has a small number of units which has been unused, which has been, you can say, unutilized. So accordingly the marginal cost curve will be used where the firm will find that that the product could be referred to a higher price for that particular product and service. So if any firm has been decided a higher price for their product, then they have to check on the marginal cost pricing, whether the marginal cost of that particular product where the firm is deciding the price is actually a slight higher than the variable cost or not. That is actually called the marginal cost pricing. Now we come up to a advantage and disadvantage of the marginal cost pricing. Marginal cost pricing has always increased the profits, and definitely it would be a sensitive need in nature or a challenging task for the particular firms to understand that some customers are very sensitive when there is a price changes for their usage products, for their consumable products. So because of the marginal cost pricing, companies will always consider or decide the price accordingly the variable cost of production, or considering the variable cost of production, and it always decide the price that according to the interest of the consumers. So when something has happened, when there is a certain change in the prices, so the business motive is to earn the additional profits just because of deciding or through or by the help of the marginal cost only. Because in the marginal cost, the variable cost is production is always involved in it, and accordingly the marginal cost would be decided of that particular product. And marginal cost pricing is strategies or such method is always beneficial when customers is always react to the various prices, or when the prices would goes higher and or lower. The next is additional entry to market. When we talk about the additional entry to markets, so obviously when we talk about the marginal cost pricing, it is a short term strategy where the particular strategy will always help to get the better and better entry points for to fulfill the needs of the consumers, or fulfill the needs of that particular business as well. So there is always a potential to backfire the strategy the business has applied or decide the prices for a short period in a particular situation. So when there are the new markets to enter along with the new market cost, new marginal cost, the companies always look up and decide the most of the cases where the consumers react about the price changes. So accordingly, such consumers will leave a business if the price changes are to be unfavorable or unfavored towards such customers. So that's why if unfavored, then there is a chances that new entries of the or additional entries of the firms would enter, or you can say into a market. And the next one is increased sales volume. So if the consumers are willing to purchase any of the products with along with a small margin, or you can see a more, you can see higher margin, then automatically marginal cost pricing will always help to such a product individually, and ultimately it will earn the maximum profits at a later stage. And accordingly, such pricing will always shows their you can say interest when there is a changes, or when there is an increase in the sales of its product. So the marginal cost of production will always shows when there is a certain change in the sales of its own products by the farm, and that is also the one of the advantage. About the disadvantage, automatically it's very bad for the long-term cases. I already told that marginal cost pricing is a short-term price setting method. So when it comes to the long-term cases, this strategy is unacceptable. So when if they used for a long term, the marginal cost will not include any of the long term or a firm fixed costs. Next one of the disadvantage of such strategy or pricing is called the market prices. So this phenomenon, which always works set up at absolute minimum cost, that is refers to a variable cost of the production. But there are various situations where the market avoids the market prices and mainly focus on the marginal cost. So, in under the marginal cost pricing, the firms will always look up the market price, and accordingly, the marginal cost will be set up. But in some situation, if the firms will always focus on the marginal cost and ignoring the market prices, as a result, a lack of focus you can say is always leads the company incapability that how they will evaluate all of the market conditions carefully and properly. So that is also the one of the disadvantage of the marginal cost pricing. Next one is marginal consumers. So when we talk about the marginal consumers, so whatever the marginal cost of production is has been decided by the firms is actually leads to a marginal prices, and the marginal consumers will always respond to such prices. So if the prices is will become lower and it keeps on changing, which are unfavorable to the consumers, then ultimately consumer will always respond to such prices. Either they leave the company or they will go against the company, and ultimately it will one of the disadvantage where the customer strength is actually low. So that is also one of the advantage of the markup pricing if has not been decided at all. That is called marginal cost pricing. Focus on cost. So automatically one of the disadvantages, there is a lack of focus on cost. So when automatically when we talk about the firms and businesses, they will create such an environment where they have a major focus to generate the profits continuously by cut off the marginal cost or by cut off the cost of the various resources to generate the profit, and such situation will never work well for the businesses when the company is trying to earn the maximum profit for a long purpose. So automatically when there is a such situations arises, the company will always shift their products into a highly quality product so that their businesses could work well into that particular market. The next is average cost pricing. So when we talk about the average cost pricing, the average cost plays a very important role. So whatever the price being set up is always close to average cost or average total cost. So this is a way, this is also one of the pricing method where the firms could achieve at least the normal profit when there is a chances to increase their sales, and that's called the one of the concept under this pricing method is called sales maximization. So their main focus is to capture the market share, which doesn't mean to achieve the maximum profit. So if the market share has been increased, then automatically the normal profits will also get increased, and that is the major focus of the average cost pricing, that is called the sales maximization. When we talk about such pricing or method which always exists in the perfect competition, where the firms would make up the normal profits. And however, in oligopoly, when the firms have a specific goal, then their main purpose to maximize the sales rather than to make up a loss. So under such pricing, the chances of losses will not exist, but their specific goal to maximize the sale, and but there are certain situation where a certain market scenarios or market structure, when in case of oligopoly the specific goal is to maximize sales. When there is a case of perfect competition, the firm will earn the normal profit. So under this method, there are two markets. Where perfect market, we can talk about the firms will earn only normal profit using this pricing method. But when we talk about oligopoly, the firm will always try to achieve the to maximize their sales, will automatically leads to the profit rather than making up a loss. And actually, when we talk about in real practice, it would be very difficult to decide the firm average cost because it involves both maximize sales and normal profits. So this is all about today. thank you so much for listening this lecture. I'll come up to a more and more relevant and important sections of this particular course and or programs. So till time, thank you all and namaste to all.